My phone started vibrating across my desk at 2:55 in the afternoon, right in the middle of the Houston Emergency Services headquarters. My name is Clara Morgan, and as an administrative coordinator, I was buried under a mountain of shift logs and paperwork when an unknown number flashed on the screen. I answered, and the sound on the other end was my 7-year-old daughter, Lily, her breath catching in ragged sobs. "Mommy," she gasped. "Aunt Jenna hit me with the TV remote. She said if I tell, she'll do it again." Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed from her end of the line, followed by my sister Jenna's furious voice snarling, "Shut up!" Then the connection went dead. My heart started pounding, a frantic drumbeat that was louder than the old fax machine in the corner. My hands were shaking, but I managed to dial Sergeant Frank Miller. I knew he was usually patrolling the area around my parents' neighborhood. "Miller, it's Clara," I said, my voice tight with panic. "Lily's at my parents' place on Oakwood Avenue. She's hurt. You have to go now." I heard the screech of tires on his end. "On my way," he said, his voice all business. Not even 20 seconds passed before he sent a text. "Arriving." I was already in my car, gripping the steering wheel, my own heart racing as I sped toward the house, a full 40 minutes away. The sound of sirens wailed in my head, a phantom echo of my worst fears. Then his next message came through. "Door breached." A scream followed, and it was Lily's. It cut right through the speaker on my phone. The city of Houston became a blur. Billboards, traffic lights, other cars, none of it registered. My mind was stuck on a loop, replaying that severed phone call, Lily's small, terrified voice breaking over and over. 40 minutes had never felt so long, each mile stretching out into an eternity. I swerved around a slow-moving semi-truck, its horn blaring behind me, but I didn't even care. Finally, the exit for Oakwood Avenue appeared, and I took the ramp so fast my tires screamed in protest. As I pulled up to the familiar ranch-style house I grew up in, flashing blue and red lights were already pulsing against the pale yellow siding. Through the front window, I could see Sergeant Miller pinning Jenna, my sister, against the living room wall. Her arms were twisted behind her back, and she was thrashing, her face flushed and angry, but Miller held her firm while his radio crackled with updates to dispatch. Other officers were already on the porch, notebooks out, securing what was now a crime scene. My parents, Robert and Diane Davis, were just standing in the doorway with their arms crossed, watching the whole thing unfold as if it were a minor neighborhood disturbance. They'd been helping me watch Lily since my divorce, claiming it would ease my burden while I worked at the station. Now, the sight of them made my stomach twist into a painful knot. "Lily!" I shouted, pushing past an officer who tried to stop me. Miller saw me and nodded toward the hallway. "She's safe, Clara. The paramedics are with her." I rushed inside, the air thick and heavy with tension. Lily was sitting on the living room couch, her knees pulled tightly to her chest, her eyes wide and glassy. A female officer was kneeling beside her, speaking in a soft, gentle voice. My daughter looked up at me, her little lip quivering. "Mommy!" I dropped to my knees in front of her and pulled her into my arms. She buried her face in my shoulder, and I could feel her whole body shaking. "It's okay, honey. I'm here now. I'm here." Miller handed Jenna off to another officer, who put her in cuffs, for now, at least. Jenna glared at me, her eyes full of venom. "This is ridiculous. She tripped." "Tripped?" I snapped, my voice low but sharp enough to cut through the noise. Lily pulled back from my hug, her voice a tiny whisper. "Aunt Jenna got mad because I spilled my juice on the carpet. She grabbed the remote and she swung it at my arm. It hurt so bad, Mommy." Her words felt like physical blows. I gently examined her forearm, which already had a fresh red mark swelling up. But it was the paramedic, a kind-looking woman with a clipboard, who leaned in after checking Lily's vitals and delivered the news that shattered my world. "Ma'am," she said quietly, "there are older bruises on her upper arm, faded, yellowish ones. This wasn't the first time." My breath hitched in my throat. Older bruises. How in the world had I missed this? For a second, the room felt like it was spinning. While officers took statements, Miller went first, describing how he'd forced entry after hearing cries for help through the door. Jenna kept interrupting him. "She's just exaggerating. Kids make up stories all the time." My father, Robert, cleared his throat. "Clara, let's all just calm down. Your sister was just disciplining her." My mother, Diane, nodded in agreement. "Children need discipline, dear. Lily has been so fussy lately." Fussy. Discipline. My blood was boiling, but I forced myself to focus on Lily. "Tell the officer exactly what happened, sweetie. Don't be scared." She nodded, her voice still small. "Aunt Jenna yells a lot when you're at work. Today she said I was a burden, like she always does. Then she hit me." The cop who was jotting down notes paused and raised an eyebrow. Miller stepped closer to Jenna. "We've got probable cause for child endangerment." Jenna lunged forward, but the handcuffs stopped her short. "You can't prove anything." I ignored her and turned to my parents. "You were here. Why didn't you do anything to stop her?" My father just shrugged. "We were in the kitchen. We heard a commotion, but we figured Jenna had it handled." My mother added, "Lily is 7 now. She needs to learn to have some respect." Respect for what? For being hit? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The paramedic wrapped a soft ice pack around Lily's arm, murmuring reassuring words. Another officer was taking photos of the scene, the overturned lamp, the dark juice stain on the rug, and the television remote, which now had a visible crack in its plastic casing. Miller pulled me aside. "Clara, take her to the hospital next. We need a full exam. We'll hold Jenna for questioning." I nodded, numbly scooping Lily up into my arms. She clung to me tightly. "Don't leave me again, Mommy." "Never, honey. I'm never leaving you again." As we walked toward the waiting ambulance, the sound of statements continued behind us. Jenna's denials grew louder and more frantic, and my parents' defense of her became weaker and more pathetic. I saw the officers exchange knowing glances. This was clearly a pattern they'd seen before. At the hospital entrance, the paramedic repeated her findings to the intake nurse. "Those faded marks on her arm are consistent with repeated impact. We'll document everything." The automatic doors slid open, and the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital felt blinding. Lily squeezed my hand, and I knew this nightmare had layers I was only just beginning to uncover. In the pediatric ER, the steady, rhythmic beep of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room, a constant reminder that Lily's vitals were stable. At least. She lay on the exam table, her small hand clutching mine, while a nurse adjusted the IV drip that was giving her something for the pain. Dr. Anya Sharma, the attending physician, had a calm demeanor that spoke of years of experience with difficult cases. She reviewed the x-rays on her tablet. "Ms. Morgan," she said, pulling me slightly aside so Lily wouldn't overhear, "the fresh mark on her forearm is from today. It's blunt force trauma, consistent with the remote you mentioned. But these older ones, on her upper arm and shoulder, they're faded, yellowish. They've been there for at least a week, maybe 2. The pattern suggests repeated incidents. Repeated." The word echoed in my head, making my stomach churn. I glanced over at Lily, who was just staring at the ceiling, avoiding everyone's eyes. How could I have been so blind? How could this have happened right under my own roof, so to speak? Dr. Sharma handed me a printed report. "We are mandated to file this with Child Protective Services automatically. You need to keep copies for any legal steps you plan to take." I nodded, folding the paper with trembling hands. Lily whispered, "Mommy, am I in trouble?" "No, sweetie. You are so brave for telling me." I kissed her forehead, then stepped out into the hallway to make a call. My phone felt like a lead weight in my hand as I dialed Jenna's number. She answered on the second ring, and the background noise told me she was still at the police station. "What now, Clara? The cops let me go with a warning." "A warning?" My voice stayed level, even as pure rage simmered just beneath the surface. The doctor just confirmed there were old marks on Lily. This wasn't a one-time thing, Jenna. There was a moment of silence, then a dismissive huff. "Doctors exaggerate. She's a clumsy kid." "Clumsy doesn't leave patterns," I said, and before she could respond, I quietly pressed the record button on a voice memo app. I held the phone steady. "Just tell me why." And with that, Jenna exploded. "Fine." I hit her because she wouldn't shut up. She's always crying over nothing, spilling things, making messes. You just dump her on us all day while you go off to your fancy job. You can't even raise her properly. If you were a better mom, this wouldn't happen. Her words were designed to hurt, to cut deep, but I let her rant, capturing every last damning syllable. "So you admit it," I said when she finally paused for breath. "Admit what? That I disciplined her? Mom and Dad agree she needs a firm hand." The line crackled with her heavy, angry breathing. I ended the call without another word and immediately stopped the recording. 37 seconds of pure, unadulterated confession. My fingers flew as I emailed the audio file to myself and then uploaded it to a secure cloud drive. As I sat on a hard plastic bench outside Lily's room, a flood of memories came back to me. Just 2 months ago, when Lily was starting first grade, Jenna had insisted on handling all the enrollment paperwork to help me out. We'd met at the school office and there was a huge pile of forms to sign. I remembered one document in particular, a temporary care authorization. It allowed Jenna to pick Lily up from school or make decisions on her behalf if I was unreachable during one of my long shifts. "You just sign here," the school administrator had said, pointing to a line at the bottom. Jenna had barely skimmed it before scratching her signature. "It's just for emergencies, right?" she'd asked. I hadn't thought twice about it then. I trusted my family. But now, that piece of paper had morphed into something monstrous, a legal foothold that could potentially be used to challenge me for custody. I remembered I'd snapped a photo of the signed copy for my records. It was a long shot, but it was something. Back in the room, Dr. Sharma returned with discharge papers. "She's clear to go home with you. Keep the arm iced and follow up in a week." Lily sat up slowly. "Can we get ice cream, Mommy?" "Soon, honey, I promise." I helped her into a wheelchair, my mind already racing miles ahead. That recording was burning a hole in my pocket. The evidence was stacking up brick by brick. As the nurses wheeled us toward the exit, Lily started chattering about her school friends, a brave attempt to distract herself. I saved the audio file again, labeling it confession. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was from determination. I realized this fight was just beginning. And for the first time, I felt like I had the proof I needed to win. I chose a small coffee shop tucked away on a quiet side street near downtown Houston. The smell of fresh coffee and pastries did nothing to lift the heavy mood as I slid into a worn leather booth. Jenna sat across from me, with my mother, Diane, on her left. Their postures were so rigid they looked like they were at a wake. I had arranged this meeting on neutral ground, public enough to keep things from escalating, but private enough to have the conversation we needed to have. Lily was safe at home with a trusted colleague from the fire station, happily absorbed in puzzles and cartoons, shielded from this toxic fallout. I placed my phone on the table between us, screen down. Before they arrived, I'd subtly activated the record function. "We're here to settle this before it goes to court," I said calmly, folding my hands on the table. "No more excuses, no more lies." Jenna crossed her arms, her usual bravado starting to show cracks around the edges. "Settle what? The cops already let me go. It was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding doesn't explain the doctor's findings," I said, holding her gaze, refusing to let my anger override my strategy. My father, Robert, who sat beside Jenna, just adjusted his glasses and pretended to study the menu. His silence was deafening. He'd always been the quiet enforcer of our family's dysfunctional peace. My mother nervously stirred sugar into a coffee she hadn't touched, the teaspoon clinking against the ceramic. To break the ice, or maybe to shatter it, I tapped my phone. The voice that emerged was Jenna's, raw and unfiltered from our phone call. Her confession of hitting Lily out of frustration, her attempt to blame my parenting, it all echoed softly in the quiet corner of the cafe, drawing a few curious glances from other customers. Jenna's hand, which had been resting on her mug, started to tremble. She set the mug down with a clatter. "You recorded me? That's illegal. Evidence of child abuse doesn't need your permission," I said, watching the tremor spread to her fingertips as she gripped the edge of the table. "It was a bad day," she said, her voice pitching higher. "Lily can be so disobedient. She talks back, she makes messes. I only tapped her to get her attention." "Tapped her?" The word sent a jolt of fury through me, but I kept my face a mask of calm. The medical report says otherwise. I slid the folder across the table, opening it to the highlighted sections. There were diagrams showing the location of the bruises, timelines estimating the age of each injury, and the physician's final conclusion: non-accidental trauma. Read it for yourself. This is a pattern that's been going on for weeks. Jenna's shaking intensified as she flipped through the pages. She's clumsy. She's always falling at the playground or bumping into furniture. Clumsiness doesn't create these specific patterns, I said, pointing to a note about the repetitive nature of the injuries. My mother finally reached for the document, her face paling as she scanned it before passing it to my father. He grunted but said nothing, just leaned back with his arms folded tightly, an observer at a disaster he refused to stop. Jenna's excuses started coming faster. Kids test boundaries. I was teaching her the lessons you skip because of your long shifts. Lessons with force? My response cut her off. I pulled out the next document, a prepared relinquishment agreement, a simple legal form that would waive any and all of her guardianship claims. Sign this. It transfers all rights to me exclusively. Any contact with Lily from now on will be supervised, and only if you earn it. Jenna's hand hovered over the paper as if it were on fire. "You're forcing me to do this. I'm protecting my daughter." My father finally broke his silence. "Clara, think about the family's reputation." "The family should have thought about Lily's safety," I countered instantly. After a few more tense moments with my mother whispering at her to just sign it, the pen finally descended. Jenna's signature was a reluctant, angry scrawl. "There, are you happy?" she spat. "No, I'm resolved," I said, collecting the signed form. The first battle was won. But I wasn't finished. I slid the freshly signed paper aside and brought out the older document, the school authorization form. I laid it out on the table, making sure it faced Jenna directly. "Before you go," I said, my voice even, "you should look closer at what you signed a few months ago." She eyed the papers warily. "More of your tricks." "No tricks, just consequences." I flipped to the key page where the care delegation clause was underlined. "This was never just for temporary pickup approval, Jenna. This grants you extended caregiving authority. In a custody dispute, Texas courts see this as a foundational document for establishing permanent placement. You signed a document saying you were a primary caregiver." Her expression shifted from anger to stunned disbelief. "You're saying that old form gives you everything?" "Paired with the waiver you just signed, yes. It establishes me as the primary guardian without any room for a legal challenge. You admitted you were a caregiver, and now you've admitted you're an unfit one." Shock turned to pure rage. She lunged for the document, trying to rip it to shreds. I secured the original before she could do much more than tear a corner of the copy I'd put on the table. "You deceived me. You set me up at that school office," she screamed, crumpling the torn pieces in her fist. "You skimmed a legal document and signed it. I just kept a copy," I said, my voice unflinching. "Your own haste and arrogance created this situation." My father tried to reason with her. "Jenna, destroying the copy changes nothing. The original is on file." My mother started to tear up. "We just thought it was helping everyone." "Help?" The word hung in the air, hollow and meaningless. Jenna slumped in her seat, defeated. "How could you manipulate your own family like this?" Manipulation would have been ignoring the bruises and letting this continue, I said, gathering the papers. This isn't about manipulation. This is about making sure Lily is safe forever. My father quietly conceded. Perhaps we overlooked the signs. Blood ties shouldn't end like this, my mother whispered through her tears. Ties break, I said, putting the document securely in my bag, when trust is broken. In the family courtroom, the old wooden benches creaked as we all took our places. I had filed for an emergency hearing the moment I left the coffee shop. Lily was waiting in a supervised play area down the hall, safe from the proceedings. Judge Harlan Brooks entered, his robe swishing, and took the bench with an air of no-nonsense authority. Case of Morgan versus Davis, custody modification, he announced. My attorney presented our evidence first, the long-term care authorization from the school, the freshly signed relinquishment waiver, the detailed medical reports, and the audio recording. Jenna sat at the opposing table with her public defender, her face drawn and pale. My parents sat behind her, their expressions a miserable mix of defiance and anxiety. I testified first, calmly recounting the initial frantic call, the scene I arrived to, and the hospital's confirmation of a pattern of abuse. This wasn't isolated, Your Honor. My child is terrified of her aunt. Jenna's defender tried to paint me as a negligent, career-obsessed mother. Your shifts leave significant gaps in supervision, do they not? Gaps that I trusted my family to fill, I countered, my voice steady, until that trust was shattered by abuse. Judge Brooks put on a pair of headphones to listen to the 37-second recording. His brow furrowed as he heard Jenna's confession. He then flipped through the doctor's annotated charts, noting the locations and healing stages of the bruises. Clear, non-accidental trauma, he murmured, just loud enough for the room to hear. Jenna squirmed in her seat. The guardian ad litem, an advocate appointed for Lily, submitted a brief report. The minor expresses significant dread of returning to the relative's home, recommends sole placement with the petitioner, her mother. The judge nodded. Any rebuttal? Jenna's side offered a few character references from her daycare job, but the judge waved them aside. Irrelevant in the face of this physical evidence. His deliberation was swift. Given the audio confession, the medical corroboration, and the prior authorization establishing the petitioner as the de facto primary guardian, he ruled, his voice leaving no room for argument. Sole legal and physical custody is awarded to Clara Morgan. No shared decision-making. A wave of relief so powerful it almost buckled my knees washed over me. The gavel struck the wood with a sharp, final crack. Furthermore, the judge continued, Ms. Jenna Davis is prohibited from approaching or contacting the child. Any violation will be treated as contempt of court. Jenna gasped. With that order, her career at the daycare was effectively over. As for the grandparents, Judge Brooks said, looking directly at my parents, your visitation rights are revoked indefinitely due to a clear failure to intervene and protect the child. You may petition for reinstatement only after completing mandatory family counseling and receiving clearance from the court. My mother stifled a sob. My father stood up for a moment as if to protest, then simply sat back down, a defeated man. A bailiff escorted a stunned Jenna out of the courtroom. My parents lingered, approaching me hesitantly. Clara, please, reconsider. There is nothing to reconsider, I said, my voice final. My only consideration was Lily. Our new apartment was filled with the soft sound of children's music. We had moved to a quieter neighborhood in North Dallas, closer to both my station and Lily's new school. We were starting over, with unpacked boxes still lining one wall, but it already felt more like home than my parents' house ever had. Our evenings fell into a peaceful new ritual. Dinner, stories, and bedtime without any shadows lurking in the corners. Lily was finally sleeping through the night, her little bed tucked under a canopy of glow-in-the-dark stars. The nightmares had stopped. Her therapy sessions were helping her unpack her fears, and her bright, energetic personality was returning. One afternoon, she presented me with a crayon masterpiece. It was two stick figures, one tall and one small, holding hands under a massive, colorful rainbow. Underneath, she had written, "Mommy and me forever." "This is for you," she beamed, hugging my legs. I knelt down, admiring her work. "It's beautiful, honey. This is going right on the fridge." Her creativity was blossoming. Our kitchen table was often scattered with paints and craft paper, and I'd join her sometimes, our laughter echoing as we made messy, wonderful art together. One evening, over hot cocoa, I explained the concept of trust to her in a way I hoped she'd understand. People we love are supposed to make us feel safe, honey, not scared. True family listens, and true family protects. She nodded thoughtfully, taking a sip. "Like you do. Always," I promised. A few weeks later, an envelope with my mother's familiar handwriting arrived. Inside was a carefully scripted letter full of apologies for their oversight, pleas for forgiveness, and hopes to reconnect someday. I read it, a mixture of old pain and numb resolve churning inside me. Then I folded it and put it away in a drawer. Our healing was the priority. Reopening those wounds wouldn't serve anyone, least of all Lily. My focus had shifted. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she wrapped her arms around my neck. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you more, sweetie." Her words warmed a part of my soul I thought had gone cold forever. This whole ordeal taught me a vital, painful truth. Being a parent means being a fierce, unwavering advocate for your child. It means being willing to see harm even when it comes from those you're supposed to trust. Blood may define your relatives, but it's actions of love, trust, and protection that forge a true family. For anyone out there who might be watching this, who might see shadows in their own family, please trust your instincts, seek help. Prioritize the person who is most vulnerable. No child's pain should be met with silence. Breaking that silence is how you save them. Our story is proof that you can rebuild from the wreckage, and that love, when it's true and protective, can heal even the deepest of wounds.